What I'm finding really interesting to think about right now is this relationship between pin squats, really high pin squats, and then ATG squats, full depth squats. Is there a relationship there? Could we say confidently, if you improve that really high pin squat, it's going to carry over to some sort of degree to the ATG squat? Is there any carryover, transfer of that strength development that you develop in a really high pin squat to the full ATG squat? Now, obviously the ranges are vastly different, and for most occasions we always say that full range of motion or long range of motion, or the full range is always better than small range. But what if we start playing with these variables where we're saying, well, this small range exercise over here, we're going to load the living hell out of that, okay? And there is something to be said about heavy ass weight. I've said this many times before, and a lot more impressive athletes and smarter people in the world have also said the same thing. Sheer weight, there's something about heavy ass weight, man. Like, even if you have to trade in range of motion, if you are moving heavy ass weight around, there is benefits there. If like I said yesterday, if you have 300 kilos and you just do a rack hold, this is 300 freaking kilos that your system is withholding. It's holding on top of itself. Everything is on fire. Like, everything needs to be on fire, activated like crazy for you to even stand there with it. So if on one hand we are saying rack holds are beneficial, then freaking tiny ass ranges of motion like the pin squats will be more beneficial than a rack hold. They just have to be. That logic has to hold true. Because then what's so special about holding the weight, that doesn't make a little bit of movement even better? So in my mind, I'm thinking to myself today, okay, let's do this freaking heavy ass pin squats again. Let me just work with it, auto-regulate it, right? I don't want to be snapping anything. See how it goes and see where I get up to. Today I got up to 320. Yesterday I did 300. Today I did 320 kilos. I didn't do any back off sets like I did yesterday. Today I actually wanted to do deadlifting, but I left my straps at home and I didn't want to go there, and that was it. So I didn't do any back off sets. So it was purely just touch a heavy pin squat and then go to squatting, and that's it. Today I hit 320. I go to back squats and I ended up doing a 200 kilo, which was kind of I kind of stopped halfway, grinded it out a little bit. It felt really heavy, but I felt confident under the weight because it's such a tiny bit of weight on top of me, man. 200 kilos is a freaking joke when you're considering what you just had on you, the 320. And why do I feel like that? Well, obviously I can't squat 250 or 240 or 230 or 220, but I can squat 212. 200 is quite close to that. When I got stuck, a little bit stuck, let's just say, when I started grinding that 200 kilos, I felt comfortable. I felt like, oh yeah, that's cool. It's a bit of weight on me. Let's just keep grinding through. I ain't dropping this. Whereas if I didn't do the pin squats in the last week, I would have given up and just dumped it because it's a heavy ass weight for me. But when you have a different perspective, all of a sudden that perspective teaches you that 200 kilos is not that much weight. My torso, my paraspinal muscles, all this core business and all the other, my pecs, rhomboids, like all this stuff is used to the 300, right? All these freaking muscles that got nothing to do with squatting get freaking activated through that phenomenon that Pavel Tsatsouline mentioned about irradiation. This idea that if you activate a muscle really, really, really hard, that activation is going to spill over to the neighboring muscle groups. What's it called? Just the localized activation goes basically a bit more systemic. So the idea that Pavel Tsatsouline explained was that if you really, really, really clench the hell out of your fist, you will feel your freaking lats engage. You will feel your abs engage. But if you just, mildly hold a fist, it's just the local muscles, like the wrists, right, that are and the forearms that are really doing this. But if you're getting ready to hit something, everything locks up. And this is the idea behind irradiation. This is the whole idea about lifting heavy ass weight, super maximal weights. Everything gets activated because it's asking every little thing from your body. That's how heavy the weight is. So 320 all the way down to 200. I made the 200 and I started thinking to myself, okay, what is the percentage of that? So 200 kilos is something like, I looked at it before, I think it's like 60% or 65%, something like that, of 320, okay? That is a small percentage. I'm thinking to myself, what if I got my pin squats the same height? I just keep it at this height, which is a very, very favorable position for me. It's just, you know, very minimal joint angles, right, happening here. It's just feel very strong. Obviously, everyone will be feeling a lot stronger in that position. What if I say to myself, let's aim to drive this 320, I don't know, up to 350, 360, 380, 400. I don't even know if you can put that much weight on the bar. Whatever, it doesn't matter. Like, let's just put all reds on the bar. I don't even know what that would make it, but it would make it freaking heavy. If I can get to a 350, 360, 380 squat, pin squat, will I be able to keep that 60 to 65% range on my 1 rep max? Could I then go to, I don't know, 220, 215 in an ATG squat? I just wonder if there is something like, if there is like a figure for each of these pin heights that we can select. Obviously, the closer you get to the ATG position, the more the carryover is going to be, because you're getting more specific. But obviously, with each of those pins that you drop down, you start to severely limit the amount of weight you can lift on the bar. Obviously, that makes sense. So there is a fine balance here where you want to really use heavy ass weight, because that's kind of the driving force here. It's not so much the range of motion that we are manipulating here. It's the freaking weight. That's the variable that we are pushing forward with. So I don't know, like, whether any of you guys out there have had this experience. I know Paul Anderson, the great Paul Anderson, the guy who was like the original freaking strongman, like, you know, extraordinaire. He was very, very impressive for his time, and probably still is. If you think about his numbers, I don't know his numbers off by heart, but all I know is he was a one strong human being. He basically made this famous, the idea of progressive range of motion. You know, squat really shallow with super heavy weight, and over the course of weeks, months, years, whatever, you start to drop or increase that range of motion. And maybe he started manipulating the weight as well, you know, like a crisscross on a graph. You know, volume and intensity usually crisscross, but let's say here for this experiment, it's the range of motion and the weight, or the intensity is crisscrossing, right? We're manipulating these two variables now. Whether there's a relationship there, whether if you can somehow muster I don't even know, some stupid number or on a pin squat of a given height, let's say my height, which is when I stand next to the bar, perfectly straight up, the bar kind of sits maybe a finger, maybe 2 fingers below the bottom of my sternum. That's how I kind of am making a mental note. That's how I'm writing this stuff down in my logbook, because I can't use numbers of the racks because the rack at home is different to the rack over there. So I'm kind of using my body as a marker. So a finger or 2 fingers, the bar is kind of like below the end of my sternum, like the arch, sternal arch. I think it's called the sternal arch at the bottom. Or is that the sternal arch at the top? I'm getting confused now. It's just interesting. You know, it will be really interesting because, you know, going from yesterday's video, I talked about what if we just train where we are good at? What if we train our strengths? You know, with the box squats in the previous, you know, 3 weeks, I was talking about training what you're bad at. You know, training or focusing on the weaknesses, right? And that is a brutal existence because obviously you're really crap at the weaknesses and it exposes you. With the box squats, I kind of got in trouble because it was changing the bar path and I started getting some knee pain or whatever. But I always had plans to go a bit higher box over the course of the, you know, following weeks. But when the box squat kind of idea fell through, I decided to go really high. And now I'm working with these really high, you know, starting positions. I'm just kind of wondering, could this work? With the boxes, I worked with the weakness. With these pin squats, I'm working with the strength, right? I mean, 320 kilo freaking squat, man. Like, that is extraordinary. But already, I'm finding like this, I don't know what you would call it, like comfort. I don't know if you can be comfortable 300 freaking kilos on your back, but you know, yesterday I hit 300, today I'm hitting 320. Like, what's changed, man? Like, you know, maybe it's just the central nervous system is kind of, I don't know, adapted a little bit. I don't know what else could, you know, I mean, you can't put on 20 kilos in the freaking squat overnight, man. Like, Even today, I thought to myself, maybe it's possible to do a little bit more with it. The whole idea is to kind of control it somewhat. You don't want to just, I don't know, go up and then down and kind of slam it. I really try to pause the 320 at the top. So my goal is to come in every single day and pin squat to whatever the difficulty is. It's going to vary greatly depending on how the body feels. Having 300 kilos yesterday on me and now 320 today, it's a lot of weight, I understand. But I'm curious whether there's going to be a relationship between the pin squats and the ATG squats. Obviously, there's a priming aspect, central nervous, peaking, all that stuff is happening. Post-activation, whatever the thing is that a bunch of you guys have said. Obviously, it's a lot of central nervous system driving all of this. There's not a lot of muscle kind of stuff going on, but I wonder if you can force that part of the physiology to help you with the ATG squat. That is an interesting thing to me. Appreciate all of you guys. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.